Everyone who is interested in Indian butterflies is surely overawed by the Nawabs and the Rajas. The Nawabs are divided into several groups of characteristic species, but although they are so, as one worker called them, charismatic, they are actually very difficult to separate. Now today I want to discuss something about the methods of distinguishing species. The ideal way, of course, is to breed them and obtain the eggs, let the caterpillar come out, feed it, let it make a pupa, and then let the adults come out, and then crossbreed them again with the suspicious group. And if they produce fertile offspring, they're the same species. If not, then they are different species. But these things are rather difficult to find, so we don't always manage to do that. So throughout the history of distinguishing species from Linnaeus onwards, we have depended on different keys. At one stage, it was just the shape and the coloration, the pattern of the butterfly. Then it was discovered that they are similar species. So then they started looking at the veins on the wings, these lines across the wing. These are the struts that hold the membrane in place. So different groups have different types of struts, of veins. When that worked up to a point, but then it doesn't work after a point, then they started looking at the internal organs, mainly the male genitalia. But in some cases, even that doesn't work. Now, in the case of these Nawabs, neither the genitalia, nor the wing venation, and nor the larval stages can tell you what it is. So they are individually very variable. That means within a species they look very different, and there are several species involved. Then along 10 years ago, along came this thing called DNA. So by analyzing and comparing the DNA of different specimens, you can decide whether they are the same species or not. In that, if there is a 3% or more difference, 3% is a completely random number. There's no supporting evidence. But anyway, it is a off-the-cuff figure where they say that if there's more than 3% difference, then you can consider what you're looking at a different species. Yes, but it's not a hard and fast rule. Now we come to the case of the common Nawab, which occurs, or was believed to occur, throughout India, from here about Kulu, downwards, over here, along here, down through Indochina, up to China, over here, down through Malaysia, down to Sumatra, Java, and Borneo. Quite a large distribution. And then it turned out that actually there are more than one species involved. This common species was called the common Nawab, Polyura athamas. And then when they looked at it again, they found that actually in India and in other parts, there were two species. And in India, among the ways to distinguish these species was that athamas here had no spot or one spot over there. And agrarius has two spots there, you see? Oh, it's not focusing. There, it has two spots over there. So these are agrarius and these are athamas. Okay, so there are two species in India. Then in 2015, Toussaint and his co-workers did a review of this, and they discovered, what they found was that with using DNA, now the type specimen of athamas is from Singapore, from the Straits of Malacca. Now the DNA of that population there differed from the DNA of Indian population from Nagaland and Kerala and West Bengal, right? So this, of course, this map has East Pakistan, this is Bangladesh, the West Bengal, Nagaland is somewhere over there, and Kerala. So the DNA was different. So they said, okay, this Indian subcontinent has a different species, and Athamas is down here. Now the old name they dug out for this was called Bharata. Bharata had been described from Darjeeling in West Bengal in 1867 by two Austrians, the Felder pair. So these chaps had collected Athamas, or what they call Bharata, over here, and they described it. Presumably the specimen is in a museum in Vienna. So since Athamas was different and the Indian ones were different, they used the name Bharata to describe the Indian ones on the basis of specimens from here, there, and there. Now this piece also occurs all over here, right? So fine, for a while it worked. In the meantime, in the same paper in 2015, they found that there was what is called a cryptic species. A cryptic species is something that superficially does not differ from the known species, but the DNA is different. So it is assumed that it is a hidden species. So they discovered a cryptic species here in northern Thailand and Myanmar, Burma, and they call this species Paulette. After Paula was the author's grandmother. She was very interested in butterflies, so he named it after her and called it Paulette. So we have Athamas here, Paulette here, Bharata here, based on an individual from here, with specimens from here, here, and here. And then this Nawab was discovered in Pakistan, right? Up here. So, that's a new population. So when they did the DNA of these ones, it turned out to be Paulette. Now, if Paulette occurs here and there, then obviously it occurs in between. On the other hand, there's Bharata in between. And Agraria, of course. Agrarius is here. So are there 2 or 3 or 4 species along the Himalaya? We don't know. But Bharata, the original Bharata, is from 1867, so the DNA is useless. Now, if we go to Darjeeling and catch one of these, do we know that it is the one that the Felders examined? Or is it by chance a variation of this one? Or is it a variation of this one, the Pallid Nawab? So, at the moment, there is a huge mess. Even for the Indian population, we don't know whether Bharata applies to the South Indian one, or it's only along the Himalaya, which is Pauletta Bharata, which is only along the Himalaya from Pakistan to Burma and Thailand, or is Bharata a separate species which actually is over here, or is this just a variation of Athamas, so that although the DNA is rather different, maybe they actually breed and produce fertile offspring, in which case Athamas is the oldest name, so all this should be Athamas. So you see, even with the tools at our disposal, we can sometimes end up in a complete and total mess.